What's really going on? Back again, everyone, with another episode. Before we get into our very, very special guest, be sure to follow us on all of our social media platforms. That includes Twitter, X, and TikTok at WRGO Pod. Be sure to like, listen, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts, including YouTube. Once again, I said that we had a very, very special guest today. So we have the distinct honor and pleasure of being joined by Mayor Brandon Scott. He is the 53rd mayor of Baltimore, Maryland, first elected in 2020 and re-elected in 2024. Prior to becoming mayor, he was a member and president of the Baltimore City Council from 2011 to 2012. He and his wife proudly live in East Baltimore. And he also has a quarter zip on that represents the state of Maryland with the Under Armour on. So, Mr. Brandon Scott, Mayor Scott, we thank you for having on. How are you today, sir?
Peace, peace. I'm good. How are you all doing? I hope everybody's good.
We can't complain. We appreciate you for following the quarter zip trend. We were waiting on Mackenzie to grab hers,
Oh, that's actually
but
not. Oh, that's actually is a quarter zip. I ain't think about that. Oh, I need to do the challenge then. My bad. My quarter zip game is strong.
well, we
Like
appreciate you for
you pop
joining
my
us.
collar up. Hold on.
Yeah, you got to pull
Let
my
me
quarter
get
zip
right.
game is strong. But all my quarter zips are Under Armour though. But yes,
It gotta be. You gotta
got
represent for
to
the
rep
city.
Baltimore, baby, all day, every day.
So, Mr. Mayor, we'll get right into it. It's fitting that we're having this conversation after the 2025 election, where we saw Democrats have strong performances across the country, from California to our neck of the woods here in Virginia, especially those in Black and brown communities, a lot of women candidates, particularly.
Yes.
Washington gets the majority of the attention when it comes to political news, but can you share with our audience the importance of those state and local elections and how they can really impact change?
They are. Listen, we all say that all politics is local, but for me, no, I'll say it like this. I had a president of these United States, President Biden, tell me multiple times that I have the hardest job in America. For the leader of the free world to say that to a mayor, that tells you, he said, because people can get to you every day. You're the one that they can see in the grocery store. Everything that you do impacts them directly. And I think that what that gets lost sometime in all the craziness and insanity and the stupidity that comes out of Washington D.C. That those folks at those local levels are the ones that are going to bear the brunt of those policies. But when you think about this last election, I'm really excited as the first vice president and soon to be president of the African American Mayors Association. Our membership grew and it grew with black women. Amen. Hallelujah. Shout out to the mayor elect in Detroit and to my good sister in Albany, New York, and all over the country where we see that. My good brother Mayor Justin Bibb got reelected in Cleveland. It's the only win Cleveland gets anytime is when he gets elected because the Browns will never win, at least not in Baltimore. And my good brother Mayor Dickinson in Atlanta, Andres reelected. It was a really good night, election night for Democratic mayors, but black Democratic mayors. And that's where the rubber meets the road. When you look at what's happening around this country, right now, all of the positive policy and change is coming from the local level. It's been driven by the local level. Where you look at what's happening here in Baltimore and Birmingham and Chicago and Oakland around reducing gun violence and what people are doing around housing, that is happening starting at the local level, and we just got to keep lifting them up.
Yeah, no, especially for a place like where I live. I live in New York City, so Zoran's mayor run, the campaign, the win, it just was like so exciting to see the passion and like the excitement in the city. So
Yeah.
I'm curious for especially a black mayor like you and what everything that you just said, how do you think that wins like yours, wins like the Albany and in other cities, how do you think that that's showing what government can do for the communities,
Well,
especially black and brown communities?
it's just the beginning, right? Winning is one thing, and then governing is another. And I think that what it shows people what's possible. And then when you have cities that support those people when they're in office, when they're coming in to change policy and things that may have been in place for a long time, right? I was in that last crew that we call ourselves the COVID mayors that came in during the height of the pandemic when we were dealing with something that no one else had dealt with before and the historic challenges. And we were able to make great change by one, working together and supporting each other, sharing the best ideas and practices. I already talked with Mayor-elect Mondami. I talk with my sister mayor, right? We have to be able to do that because what it shows people, and especially for those young people that come from those communities, that they can achieve their wildest dreams and they can be a part of change. But it was long time for us to start electing a different crop of younger folks, people that represent their community, that look like their community in this country. And I'm so excited to see it happening.
Can you talk a
Listen,
little?
I will just say that I did welcome my good brother into the mayor's club with the only way that Mayor Brandon Scott knows how to welcome. Every time the Ravens win, there's a petty Ravens post from me. If we lose, there's a petty Ravens post from me. But it often ends up with a picture of the mayor on a post on my Instagram and him, and it may have something to do with the mayor and a picture of a like crinkled up paper jet or something last Sunday, but that may have happened. So he's fully in the club now.
Well, can you actually talk about some of those conversations? What were some tips or any inspiration or advice you might have given him?
Well, anybody that talks to me, including my brother and sister mayors, what I always say to them is first, uh, do what's right, not what's popular, even if it's detrimental to your own political career. Right? I said that on the first day, within the first minutes of me being the mayor of Baltimore, walking outside of City Hall because there was no big celebration, it was COVID, right? And saying that people will not always agree with everything I do, but I'm going to do what's right for Baltimore, not what's popular, because a lot of the time, many things that are popular are not the right thing. And if you do the right thing and you can go home and sleep well at night and sleep in your heart and your mind and your stomach and know that you did that and you do what you have to do, what will come politically, what will come. It shouldn't matter. You shouldn't be running for office to govern just to get reelected. You should be governing to make deep and long lasting change. And then the other things that I tell them is one, do the tough stuff first. That's what you have to do. Begin with the hard stuff. Set those goals. Break down those systems. Do all of those things because you don't want to wait to do those things. Enjoy it and have fun. But also never forget that you're human too. Never forget your family. Make sure that you take as much balance as possible and take care of yourself, both physically and mentally, because this job is heavy. You are bearing the brunt of everything that every person is going through in that city, and you're going to be the person that has to tell parents that their children aren't coming home and children that their parents aren't coming home, and you don't get used to that. No, as many times you do it, you have to take care of yourself because you can't be the best mayor if you're not in the best physical and mental shape.
And how do you balance that though? You mentioned the word balance before, but yeah, I know in like a world you can plan for things and then when you get into the position, there's other things that come up. So can you talk about how you balance what you run on and being super progressive and then the realities of actually holding the position?
Yeah, I think that you have to understand. I guess for me, it's a little different, right? I came to City Hall when I was 23. Started as an unpaid intern, worked in the mayor's office before, ran for city council, and then went back into the executive branch as the mayor. So I went from the intern to the CEO. So for me, I had a long standing understanding of what was happening in city government, how city government worked, right? So I understand that I come at it in a different viewpoint, but it's about making sure that you're making that change and understanding that sometimes you can't just come in and make that big change that you want to have. I'll give you a perfect example. I ran on making sure that we would have a comprehensive violence prevention strategy in Baltimore, our CVIP that we have now today, and that we would develop a focused deterrence model, or what we now call GVRS. Well, I couldn't just come in and do that because the infrastructure needed to have that program up and running didn't exist. We had to build it, which means I had to delay it, which means I had to take the media hits, take the community of folks saying, you promised this, you promised this, you promised this. And that's part of the job. And also things are going to pop up, right? Like I had a whole block of houses explode in two different situations. Obviously, everyone knows we had a whole bridge collapse. I lost three firefighters in a fire. I had a police officer murdered. I lost someone that was like a brother to me, one of our violence prevention workers. Things are going to come up in this job, but you have to deal with those, but stay focused on the mission. And I think that that's what you have to do. You have to balance all of these things out. That's part of this job, is being able to stay focused and be involved in operating at high level efficiency on so many things.
That's a beautiful way to answer that. And considering, like you kind of mentioned earlier, a lot of new Democrats are stepping into this role of becoming mayor or in politics in general. And considering you've been in politics for so long, we see this kind of pushback toward Democrats to some degree. They're not doing enough, or a lot of constituents may complain, especially where I'm at in Atlanta. Uh, we pay rates, taxes, grocery costs, et cetera, et cetera. How do you, being so popular in the city of Baltimore, see what authentic representation would look like, especially during this time of like pushback?
Yeah, I think and listen, I know everyone always says you're in the Maryland bubble, right? I know it's different here in Maryland than it is everywhere. This is the part we turn into commercial. If you are living other places, Georgia, Virginia, wherever, DC, any of these places where you want to feel like you can come and then be your beautiful black self, be whoever you want to be, love whoever was, love whether you're black, brown, or whatever. But we have to understand that you have to come to Wakanda. Come to Death Row Records, known as Maryland and Baltimore. We welcome you all to be here. You ain't got to worry about anybody telling you what you can't learn in history, that slavery wasn't that bad. You don't have to worry about that here. Come here, we got you. So make sure that my name is Brandon Scott, and I approve that message. But putting that aside, I think that what we have to do is show up for who you are. People will tell you, no matter who, whether they like me or not in Baltimore, they're gonna say he is who he always is and who he always will be. I will not change. I do not change in any room that I am. My wife, if she was here talking with you all, would say that one of the things that she and most people appreciate about me the most is that I show up as my authentic self no matter where I am. There is no like, oh, I'm going to be different in this space or that space. No. And when I show up in any room, I represent my city, I represent my people, I represent people from places like that from which I came. But what we have to do right now is also call a spade and not fall for the banana in the tailpipe, right? Because we have to understand at the local level that the pressure is now coming from on high, right? And we have to understand who is in control of those things. Now, for those of us who are Democrats, and this won't be the first time I've said this, and it won't be the last. And folks may be angry at me for saying it again. If the Democrats at large, especially at the national level, want to win, then they have to put the mayors in. Put the folks who talk to the people every day, who communicate them, who have been able to communicate strategies around gun violence and all these things with these folks effectively into the conversation. You have to lead from the bottom, grow it from the folks who know best because they have to deal with them, right? I'm myself and Mayor Bowser are probably the only mayors in the country who literally can see their congressional people every day, right? Because everybody else is hundreds of miles away, right? For the most part, from where they represent, and maybe northern some parts of Virginia, right? Most people don't have that. So that even the folks who have the best intention, they're not there every day in the cities that they represent. And that's not a bad thing for them because they're elected to do that and be in DC. But we have to lift up the folks who are on the ground doing that work and at the local level and at the state level, they're just more connected.
I love that you spoke about that like direct connection between local politicians and constituents, considering a lot of people feel disconnected again. And we do see this win in 2025 of this big blue like wave, but how do you see that going into 2026, especially with a lot of stuff coming from the top and this redistricting and all of this stuff?
Hmm. Well, listen, folks got to keep fighting, right? And I think that folks have to fight on every level. A lot of this is going to be fought in court, obviously, right? And people have to not fall for the Jedi mind tricks because we know those folks control a lot of the media outlets and algorithms and folks that things going to be pushed down on folks. That's why it's important to have great folks like you all pushing out actual real information. But the most important part is you got to talk to people and meet them where they are, right? No matter what, I was myself and my governor were walking around Drew Hill Park today, and I got stopped by a lady who was asking me about this construction project. And I took 10 minutes to talk through it with her so she understood what we were doing. We have to meet people where they are and have real conversations and about the things that matter to people at their kitchen table in a way that they understand. Not some high level hyperbole, not some academia talk, real plain Jane talk that folk understand.
And with like talking to people in a plain Jane way, how do you communicate what powers you have as a mayor to push back toward Trump, considering he's deployed military and National Guard like agents across the United States? And that's kind of,
Interesting.
you know, inciting war on your direct American people. So how do you feel about that? And how would you communicate to your constituents the powers you have to push back, or powers mayors overall could have to push back against this administration?
Yeah, I think here in Baltimore and across the country, folks know that how mayors are fighting. We're fighting in court. We're fighting in policy for the things that we can control, right? There are things that we don't control, and we continue to do that, right? We will anytime anybody is wrong, right? We're coming off of my administration winning the largest settlement case against any gun store in this United States of America's history because we went after the gun store for selling guns to people illegally. We don't care who you are. We've notoriously won hundreds of millions of dollars going after drug companies for helping fueling overdoses in Baltimore. We don't care if you're one person, if you are a big billion-dollar company, or you're this administration. If you are doing things out of line with American democracy and out of line with American values, we will take every avenue that we have.
And you actually mentioned this earlier about talking about actual facts and like Trumps and Republicans and just people with misinformation have, I feel like, always painted Baltimore as this crime-driven city. And I know that you've made your own efforts. We've talked to other local council leaders who have done efforts and talked about how they're doing their things to support this, or I guess not support this, but help people on the ground when it comes
Yeah.
to gun violence, opioid crisis. So can you just share some actual stats of some of the efforts that you've been doing and that you've seen in place?
Yeah, I think that folks, when you think about where Baltimore was when I came into office versus where we are today, and we'll just start with gun violence, right? As we are talking today, Baltimore has the fewest amount of homicides on any November 25th ever recorded, right? And we're talking about a 60% decrease over the last few years and a 30% decrease from last year. At this time, last year was 180, which was an historical low for the time, right? Like that's what we're talking about. You're talking about driving down numbers that we have never seen in Baltimore City. But it's not just that. Non-fatal shootings are down 23%. Carjackings are down 35%. Robberies overall are down 31%. And we're doing that in a way that many people said would never work. We are going out and focusing our law enforcement efforts on the people that are using the guns, that are trafficking the guns, and the very small groups of people that are committing the violence through our group violence reduction strategy. But we don't just simply go out and arrest everybody. We actually give those individuals a chance. They get a letter directly from the mayor that says, I know who you are, yo. I know what you do for a living. This is your one and only chance that I'm giving you to change your life. If you need help getting a job training, substance abuse, health, relocation, housing, whatever, I have the power through my office to help you. But if you don't, and if you tell me to kick rocks, you will go to jail. That's it, right? People have, out of the many folks that we've taken up on that offer, 322 of them have said, you know what, yo, I want some help. 94% of them have not been re-victimized and 98% have not recidivated.
Wow.
That's the work that we're doing. But I will say, on the flip side, we just had some takedowns a few weeks ago. We've had 551 arrests related to GVRS investigations, which are large scale investigations, taking down groups that are pumping guns and drugs in the community. So folks ain't gonna never say like, oh, they need to give me a chance. No, we gave you a chance. If you deserve a chance, you got one. But we have to continue to do those things that way and go after gun companies, right? We sued Polymer 80, the nation's largest ghost gun manufacturer, a few years ago and won ending their business, not just in Baltimore and Maryland, and now the business, they're going bankrupt, right? I told you guys about directly about what we did with the gun store. We're doing all that. And at the same time, we put $50 million of our offer money into our community violence intervention, into our Safe Streets program, and these other hospital-based responders who are dealing with community violence intervention. You cannot cure gun violence by doing one thing. We're doing all of these things and simultaneously putting historic amounts of investment into our schools, into our recreation and parks department. Rec and parks budget in my time in office has grown by 40%. We have 5 rec centers under construction right now, 3 that will open in the next three to 6 months in Baltimore. That's how we're doing it.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting just to, I think to actually have stats. I know we've actually talked about how just finding information now because of what you talked about, Mr. Mayor, in terms of algorithm, it's so hard to actually just hear what's happening. And one thing that I think to what Henry was talking about, just in terms of the light that Baltimore is painted in, obviously there's been, and this spans back long before your time as mayor, where there's been, disinvestment from companies, especially in those blue collar jobs that were so critical to the city that has resulted in a high number of vacancies. It's not something that is just unique to Baltimore. That's a product of generational decisions that have impacted from companies leaving to, shipping jobs overseas. Can you talk about particularly how in East and West Baltimore, the work that your administration is doing to have vacancy reduction and why it's so critical to the city? I identified with what you just said earlier. My goddaughter actually lives in Druid Hills, so that's so funny. You
All
might
right.
have actually talked to her mother. I wouldn't be shocked, but
This would have been her grandmother, but yes.
okay, well there, I'll take it. So that wasn't her. But can you talk about what you're doing? Because like I see even at the time that she's lived in Druid Hills, there are less vacancies and people are
Yeah,
coming in. But Baltimore just has this narrative that it's just, Bando Central. But can you talk about why that work that you're doing there is so important?
it's funny. You said bando. I hadn't heard that in a while. But this is what I'll
Keeping it
say.
real.
We have to understand this. The first racial redlining law in this country was signed in my office.
Wow.
Baltimore's the first. So when you take that and you add in what you just said, deindustrialization, right? When you think about Bethlehem Steel, which my
Hmm.
uncles worked at when they moved here from rural North Carolina, it's the port. It's literally the reason why I exist. My granddad worked at General Motors, right? That's how him and my grandmother bought the house that my aunt still lives in today, and literally how my mother and father met. I wouldn't exist if it were not for the Port of Baltimore in the industry that was here.
Yeah.
When that leaves, right? When you also have the highway to nowhere, where you everyone hears about these highways that they destroy black neighborhoods and they connect the interstates. We have something worse in Baltimore. We have a highway that they built that was supposed to connect Interstate 70 and I-95, which do not connect anywhere in these United States of America. But in doing that, they destroyed a middle class black neighborhood known as West Baltimore, right? It's a highway running through it that does
Mhm.
not connect to anything. That's why we call it the highway to nowhere. When you throw that on top of the implementation of all those outdated racist and zoning laws and the redlining laws, and then drugs and guns miraculously start showing up out of the sky, right? We all know what really happened there, right? That's when you have a recipe for disaster, that disinvestment, because that disinvestment wasn't just happening, it was purposeful. And it
Yeah.
impacted West Baltimore and East Baltimore in a much greater level than even where I grew up in Park Heights. And we had vacants, right? I lived next to one for many years, 2 doors up from me. But I think about it like this. It's never been if Baltimore city government, if our partners at the state, if our community partners and private partners knew how to deal with the vacant crisis in Baltimore. It's always been about the capital. When I took office on December the 8th of 2020, there were 16,000 vacant properties in Baltimore. On December the 8th of 2000, when I was a junior in high school, there were 16,000 vacant properties in Baltimore. The number had not moved, not because people weren't taking houses from vacant and putting value into them, but we could not keep up with the pace, right? And because of the money, we developed a $3 billion 15-year plan between myself as the mayor of Baltimore, GBC as the business community of Baltimore, Build as the community, and then when Governor Moore came on, the state government, to have a 15-year, $3 billion plan to eliminate vacancies in Baltimore. Right, that includes something that has never been tried anywhere else in the country. Normally, when they're doing tax increments financing or TIFs, they do it on some wide area. Think Harbor East, right? Think Baltimore Peninsula. All of what we love, Harbor Point, which I voted for Peninsula and Harbor Point. Great things to do for the city. But instead, we're putting in on the actual vacant houses in East and West Baltimore to take that tax incentive that we have used on these wealthy projects into our neighborhood to lift them up. And the strategy has already started to pay dividends, right? Because we are now down to 12,247 vacants since I first took office. And with the partnership they would have with Governor Moore committing $50 million a year from the state, and it's structured for us to leverage 5 billion in private capital. And independent analysis projects that 7.3 billion in long-term value through rising property values, job creation, and new tax revenue from this work. Now we have support from JP Morgan Chase, PNC, Bank of America, Bloomberg, and the Weinberg foundations. That's the way that we're going to do this. And it's a whole block strategy, block by block, community by community. Every case is a different vacant, and every block is a different case. And we're going to be building from strength. And it's helping us to create things that we never thought we would see. And I'll tell you a couple anecdotes. My grandmother's house is 2510 Loyola Northway. If I told my grandmother not too long before she went to be with the ancestors that grandma, we're gonna be doing a lot of renovations of the houses in the neighborhood, and the property value is gonna go up. And she looked at me and said, "Boy, they've been talking about that goddamn Park Heights master plan since you were in eighth grade. I'll believe it when I see it." Right? And rightfully so, because she was spot on. They had been talking about it since I was in eighth grade. And here I am now, the freaking mayor of the city, and it hasn't happened yet. But guess what's happening right now? In that 2600 block, a block up from my grandmother, they're selling houses for $300,000. And the people that are buying them look like me, right? We now have new buildings built in Park Heights on what was vacant lands for seniors to be able to have affordable housing. We're building a new library there, right? We renovated the rec center and built a new aquatic center. We're going to break ground on the first new for sale homes, right? Not too far from now. That's what we're talking about when we're talking about this strategy, rebuilding our city block by block.
I love that, and that is really incredible. So speaking of that, has there been any accomplishment that hasn't been on the radar of headlines? I know I work in the media, it's a lot to cover, so not everything makes the headlines, but is there anything that you're particularly proud of?
Let me think about that for a second. I think that there are a lot of things to be proud of, but I think that some of the things that fall under the radar, believe it or not, right? During my first term, we reached our lowest unemployment level ever in the city.
Mm.
Not one media story about that, which is insane, right? But also I think it gets talked about, but I don't think it gets talked about enough how important for Baltimoreans and communities in Baltimore this historic investment that we have put into rec and parks has been. Like on my social media channels, right? Like that's the one. But when you think about like the large scale, there hasn't been that much talk about that investment that we've done there, and in the life the changing that it does for our young people in our communities.
Yeah, and I think that's so interesting just because in DC that's a problem too. I think it's also just the lack of spaces that especially Black children have to just be kids is certainly decreasing. So it's amazing to hear, especially I know as someone who has young kids, for you to prioritize places where kids can just be kids. Um, Leadership, obviously, Mr. Mayor, has a way of changing your perspective once you're actually to what you talked about. Once you're in the seat and you talked beautifully about how you have to do some really hard, uncomfortable things in that seat, talking to, parents who lost a child. What's one issue that's become an unexpected priority for you, or something that you didn't foresee having to, you know, something that you didn't foresee when you took the job of this is something that I never thought I would have to deal with, and now I have to. Can you share a little bit about that?
Oh, that's really easy. I was just got home from doing my state of the city. My son was 3 months old and he hadn't been to sleep yet, and finally got him to go down. And I hadn't been asleep yet, and the phone's ringing. It's my fire chief. The fire chief follows says, "Sir, the key bridge collapsed." I
Mm,
said, "Repeat
yeah,
that?" He said, "It's gone, sir. It's in the water." And I go, "Where are you?" "I'm on my way." You cannot, nothing you will ever outdo that, right? Hopefully. I think that because you just cannot think about something like that. And this is coming from someone who unfortunately has a lot of experience in dealing with tragedy and traumatic situations, right? Like as I said to you guys, dealing with losing folks and a whole block of houses just exploding, right? Losing three firefighters in a fire, losing police officers and violence intervention workers, right? Losing some more firefighters, right? I think I've done far too many in line of duty things and community things like that. I think that, but that is the one that I think that you just never expect, and you can never imagine, like, and it wasn't just uh, uh, the scale and size of it, but the human nature.
yeah,
Because when I first got there in the early hours in the morning, while the whole world was talking about me being DI, and I didn't know it until they asked me that question that day and got
yeah,
the appropriate response. But you could still hear like the steel moving on the boat. I'll never get that sound out of my head, right? And then having to a year later be on a boat and taking the families out to the site to lay reefs in the water, you never, ever understand that kind of pain.
Um, yeah, I can only imagine. To try to lighten the mood a little bit,
Please.
um, we kind of try to like have a little fun when we're getting toward the episode.
Oh, this the part where we talk about like music and sports.
Yeah.
yes, sir.
All right, good.
All right. So, what's the
Five
best?
best rappers of all time. Dylon, 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 and Dylon.
Okay, who the second?
Me.
Drop the mixtape. We'll wait for the link.
We waiting on it, man. Really.
May or may not be recorded freestyles from me
Oh, we might have to go
and my wife
find
somewhere
those.
that y'all won't get until after I'm not in office.
So, if you weren't in office, you'd be a rapper.
No, I wouldn't be a rapper.
So, what would you be
I still
doing?
am a DJ. If I weren't in office right now, what would I be? Oh, look, I gotta ask you a question for the question. Okay. Are you talking about if I was never in office or if I wasn't in office after being in office right now?
How about you? Just both. We can do
You
both.
take that how
Oh,
you want to.
Yeah, we can do
the
both.
truth is that this is the beauty of starting so young. You know, I could retire today and they would have to pay me a lot of money to be at home and do nothing and just be with my kids. But I'm not retiring. But I would say it depends. I probably would be like either I could see myself teaching at Morgan and Coppin, working on gun violence and building gun violence networks and gun violence work across the country, right? When folks ask me about other elected offices, I let them know very clearly I never want to be the president of the United States. I don't want to give up driving for the rest of my life. I have currently, I have no desire to be the governor of Maryland. There's only ever been really one other elected position that I would consider, and seeing as though Congressman Kwesi and Fume literally gave me the courage that I have in my voice today when I was 7 years old at Memorial Stadium, when I had lost that confidence in my voice because I had surgery on my throat as a kid, he can stay there as long as he wants, as far as I'm concerned. But those are the things I would be doing. I would go back to like coaching kids sports and stuff like that too. Doing whatever my wife tells me to do.
Good answer.
No, right. Um, so what is like the all-time Baltimore anthem?
uh oh, this is a generational one, right? So the kids today, and apparently Apparently, the whole world is bringing in the cats now. I just found that out. I got to hit my man Pork Chop up. There's a line dance to a Baltimore club song, which is a very weird thing. But we know the whole world loves Baltimore so much. Everybody, they try to act like they don't, but then they want us to talk because they like to hear our voice and it makes them feel good. Then they like the music too. We understand everything's better with a little Old Bay on it. But I think the all-time Baltimore anthem has to be, it's a club song called Hey You Knuckleheads because it goes through all the neighborhoods in Baltimore.
That's dope. I don't think
Now
I
you
heard.
got that, or you obviously, if you want to get a little R&B ish, you get Drew Hill and get you a couple hops in
Mhm.
to
Okay,
remind everybody that comes from
I know
Baltimore
that
too.
one. I
Yeah,
know that one.
yeah. You supposed the other one you're not supposed to know unless you hear you're not supposed to know it.
See,
That's
I used to stay in Maryland. Maryland, how you, Maryland? Yeah, I used to
it's
stay
in,
up there.
it's for Baltimoreans only. And let me get this very clear: Baltimore is not in the DMV. It's them, and then it's us.
You wanted it? No, just play it. Oh.
No, I'm not one of them. I'm the one.
Let me know then. My bad. So where's the best place to get crabs or crab cakes in Baltimore?
Two different places. If you're getting a crab cake, it's Coco's and nothing. In Northeast Baltimore, right across right around the corner from Morgan State. Once you have a Coco's crab cake, you will not eat one anywhere else in the country. And for those of you who were seeing this from other places, if you're in New York or you're in Massachusetts or Texas or Georgia, and they say Maryland style crab cakes, it's not a Maryland style crab cake. You can only get them in Maryland, and better yet, you can only get them in Baltimore. To eat crabs outside, my favorite place is Captain James down on Boston Street.
Nice, nice. And last question before we actually like exit out of here. Who is your favorite Baltimore athlete of all time?
This is a
Oh
big one.
man, of
Choose
all
wisely.
time, man, you're gonna get me in all kind of trouble with this one. The other ones were easy. Of all time, my favorite Baltimore athlete. Um, I gotta do one from each sport. It's Adam Jones from the Orioles and Ray Lewis. And to be honest, it has nothing really to do with just their sports, right? They were great for us, right? Obviously on the team, but when you're talking about like the community, right? Like I was just with Ray celebrating anniversary of his Power 52 organization that helps folks get job training and putting in solar and all of those things. Adam Jones is still connected here. He hasn't been with the Orioles for a long time. I just saw him recently, became an Orioles Hall of Famer this summer.
Mhm.
Shout out to my man. But the work that he's even still doing here with young people in baseball, and just tell you a quick aside. One day when I was on the city council, I just, got a call, and it's from him. It's actually around this time. The event's tomorrow. And he's like, "Hey man, what you doing? I wanna where you helping to serve food for like Thanksgiving or something? I want to do it, but on the low, I don't want the team to know." And I said, "All right, Adam, meet me at the Baltimore Convention Center tomorrow at this time. I won't tell anybody but one staffer there and see." And he did it. And that was him. He would just show up. And now, but I will tell you, you know who's creeping into that conversation is our quarterback. Lamar's creeping into that conversation, man, because he puts on for the city. He shows up all the time. He had a big turkey giveaway in Park Heights last weekend. So shout out to LJ. But right now, he focused on making sure that we get where we need to go this year.
Mr. Mayor, I was waiting for you to, because I was going to say all the kids under 25 were waiting probably for you
Yeah,
to
well,
pick
listen,
Lamar.
we know
So
we know. Look, I love my quarterback. I do. I love him dearly. He's the best quarterback we've ever had. No disrespect to playoff Joe, but it's another level, and he getting there, but he ain't there yet. And that level for us, the standard is the standard. Is a Lombardi, and Ray got two of them. We
here,
coming though. We
here.
coming.
Here, here. Well, Mr. Mayor, it was an honor to talk to you, for you to join us. I know our audience is going to love this. If you have anything that you want just to say from you as in your capacity as a mayor, for you to represent a black city like Baltimore in this moment, the floor is yours for our listeners, also for how to connect with you to stay up to date on what you and your office are doing. Sir, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you. You can find us on Instagram and all the social medias at Mayor BM Scott. I just want folks to know that we're going to continue to lead in this moment, show up authentically, but show up with really the dignity and respect that people deserve in this moment. And the last thing that I will say is blackness today, blackness tomorrow, blackness forever.
There is no better way to end it. Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. We appreciate it.